Revealed, the sinister secrets of the cursed bloodline that will haunt you forever. Sarah sat on the porch, a dousing rain masking the cracked pavement of Maplewood. Shadows lurked under the flickering streetlight, casting an eerie glow across the empty road. The nearby trees rustled ominously, whispering secrets she could barely hear. Holding a cigarette, she stared into the darkness, wishing the mundane worries of a single mother didn't seep into her bones. But tonight, as rain pelted the roof and thunder shook her tiny home, something felt raw, and an icy dread took root in her gut. The whispers in town, those sinister tales of the Carter curse, had always felt like idle gossip to her. But now, with the wind howling through the eaves, she couldn't shake the feeling that Maplewood itself was alive, watching her with malevolent eyes. As she inhaled, smoke curled in the air, vanishing into the storm. She thought of Mia and Danny asleep inside, dreaming peacefully but vulnerable to the unseen horrors creeping through their neighborhood. With every boom of thunder, her heart raced. An uneasiness settled in the pit of her stomach like a growing darkness. Black cats moved like phantoms along her porch steps, their eyes aglow like embers. An electric hum filled the air, prickling her skin. Suddenly, she heard it, a raspy whisper, barely audible, calling her name. Sarah. Her breath caught in her throat, and she scanned the shadowy corners of her yard, her pulse pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Could her neighbors really be discussing her family? The unseen horror seemed to swirl with each clap of thunder, echoing the stories she'd heard in passing conversations, people disappearing, calamities striking the bloodline of the Carters. She flicked her cigarette into the rain, a futile attempt to ward off the chill creeping into her bones. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Dread whispered through her mind like the wind howling past. She stepped inside, treating her heart's frantic beats as if they were mere figments of her imagination. But that night, as she settled into bed with thoughts of her children echoing in her head, a sudden scratch against the window jolted her upright. The world outside blurred by sheets of rain. Everything felt wrong. She turned, searching for comfort in her children's slumber. They were safe. But what about tomorrow? More notes appeared around their home, sinister reminders tailored to slice through her peaceful delusions. They detailed private moments, her last argument with Mia, the secrets she whispered into the dark. Panic gripped her. Daring a glance out the window, she saw a shadow dart between the trees. It wasn't just the storm, and it wasn't just her imagination. It drew closer, the pulse of tension thickening in the air. Darkness swallowed the lamp by her door as curiosity turned to dread, sending her stumbling toward the door. The house creaked, whispering warnings. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes trailing behind her, could almost hear the impending footsteps closing in, and just then the sound of a soft giggle, the innocent laughter of her little Danny, echoed in her mind. No more shadows, no more whispers. Would they come for him next? The pulse of time quickened, pulling her toward the brink of what this eerie town had kept hidden. She stood on the precipice of unveiling what lurked in the depths of her cursed bloodline, but at what cost? Her legs carried her forward into the shadowy gloom, every fiber of her being screaming to turn back. As she stepped over the threshold into the storm, a chill settled deep in her bones. The chilly air draped over her like a shroud. The clicks of her flashlight felt feeble against the consuming dark, each beam unveiling yet another ghost of Maplewood. Whatever awaited her at the close of the night surely knew her name. But more chillingly would it let her leave? The storm raged, a symphony of chaos playing in the background as Sarah stepped into the night. With each breath, the air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and something foul lurking just below the surface. The flashlight's beam pulsated against the trees, revealing twisted branches that reached out like skeletal fingers, yearning for something lost. Just get Mia and Danny. Get them and go, she whispered to herself, yet her feet sank into the mud, each step feeling like wading through dark water. She pressed forward, her heart hammering in her chest. The laughter of her children echoed, a haunting reminder of what was at stake. With the shadow of the curse heavy on her shoulders, fear clawed at her edges. A wail sliced through the air, a child's cry. Her breath caught, and she swung the flashlight frantically, illuminating the yard, then the trees. Nothing. Just shadows. Still, that cry lingered, curling around her mind like smoke, melding with the raindrops that fell heavier, slippery and cold. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. The echo came back as silence, mocking her, but then, right in front of her, a silhouette stepped into the light, a figure draped in darkness. Heart racing, she squinted, trying to make out the details. The face came into view, aged and twisted, dark hair matted against the skin. Sarah gasped, the recognition slamming into her gut. It was an old woman from the neighborhood, known only as Miss Hargrove, always muttering about curses and the Carters. "Leave this place." The old woman croaked, her voice wet and raspy like the leaves beneath Sarah's feet. "You cannot escape the blood." Every ounce of Sarah's instinct screamed to turn back, but curiosity anchored her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The woman's eyes sharpened, piercing through Sarah like shards of ice. "They will come for your children." They returned. Panic surged, her children were back in the house, blissfully unaware of the terror wrapping around them like a vice. Who is coming? The blood calls to them. "They are marked," Miss Hargrove hissed, and a gust of wind whipped through the trees, sending chills racing down Sarah's spine. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and shadows undulated, figures appeared, drifting between realms. Faces twisted in agony, their mouths moved silently, screaming long-forgotten laments. The ghostly outlines reached for Sarah, fingers stretching toward her as if seeking something she couldn't comprehend. "Run!" Miss Hargrove cried, fear lighting her normally haggard face. As the figures advanced, Sarah felt the world tilt. She turned on her heel, sprinting towards the house, heart thundering, breath burning. The wind shrieked behind her, carrying with it the echoes of the past. The flashlight flickered, dimming, shadows jostling for her attention, but she pushed through the fear. Stumbling up the porch steps, she slammed the door shut, panting. Every instinct screamed to lock it tight, but as she turned, dread gripped her as she faced the living room. There, on the floor, lay crumpled notes. Her breath hitched as she recognized the handwriting, a sickening mix of her own and someone else's, intertwining the sections of her children's hearts with dark intentions. "Mommy!" Danny called from the brittle shadows of the hallway. "Stay back!" she shrieked, but as the horrid tales spun in her head, it felt as if the house itself shifted around her, walls whispering their secrets. In that moment, horror twisted in her gut. What if she wasn't just protecting them from the curse but inadvertently sealing their fate? The walls trembled, and a shadow that was not her own lurked in the corner of her eye, growing more defined, waiting, watching. She turned, ready to face whatever emerged from the darkness, understanding finally that she had opened a door she couldn't close. But as she did, time slowed and reality twisted again. Would the curse truly take her children, or had she already doomed them by seeking the truth? Just then, the front door rattled violently, a clap of thunder echoing. Ominously as an indiscernible voice whispered from the darkness, "The pact is sealed." A new terror surged through her. What would she sacrifice to save her children? As Sarah's heart raced, the rattling at the door burst open, as if the very winds had thrown it aside. A cold, damp gust rushed in, swirling around her like a predator ready to pounce. The figures from outside squeezed through the threshold, almost flowing like smoke, encircling her. Their faces were twisted, mouths gaping in eternal screams, hands reaching out with a hunger that chilled her bones. "Mommy!" Danny's voice turned to a whimper as he hid behind the staircase. "Mommy, what's happening?" "Stay away!" she screamed, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. The beam flickered wildly, casting monstrous shadows across the living room walls. "Help us," came the whispering wail of the figures as they advanced. Words she couldn't comprehend danced around her mind like a cursed melody. They were trapped with her, bound by a shared fate that staggered her. "Danny! Mia!" She shouted, searching for her daughter in the shadows, but silence wrapped around her like a thick fog. Desperate, she turned away from the encroaching horror and dashed to the hallway. Each step felt like trudging through quicksand. "Mia! Where are you?" The air thickened, heavy with dread. She felt the walls pulse, almost breathing, alive with their spectral secrets. Sarah rounded the corner and found Mia standing frozen at the bathroom door, eyes wide with fear, her small fingers pressed against the wood. "Mia!" Sarah cried, making her way toward her daughter. "Mommy, I heard voices." Mia's voice trembled, fixing her gaze behind Sarah. "They want to take us." A rush of panic seized Sarah. "No. We have to go now." She grabbed Mia by the arm, tugging her toward the living room, but the shadows surged forward, enveloping them in a dark shroud. Then suddenly, she noticed something in the corner, shimmering amidst the chaos. An old mirror leaned against the wall, cracked and fogged. There was a strange energy around it that felt both inviting and horrific. She turned to look, and in its reflections, she didn't see her own frantic visage, but instead the faces of twisted figures clawing at the boundaries of the glass, their eyes wild with an unquenchable thirst. "This is how they pull you in," a chorus of ghostly voices echoed, melding into a beautiful yet haunting melody. "The blood must flow, the children must be claimed." "No." Sarah shook her head, breaking the spell. "I want to let you take them. I will fight." She turned to face the wave of darkness, holding her children close as shadows climbed the walls, waiting, watching that a sharp glare from the mirror caught her attention again. The figures twisted, almost imploding into the glass, revealing fleeting images of the past, her house once filled with laughter, family gatherings, but interspersed with scenes of violence, betrayal, and whispered curses. The truth clawed at her, raw and harsh. "They are tied to the bloodline," Sarah whispered in realization. The stories she dismissed were alive. "Mommy!" Danny tugged on her shirt, terrified. "What do we do?" I need to know how to stop this," she confessed, fear tightening around her throat. But as she spoke the words, the shadows hissed, their whispers blending fiercely. "You should never have come back." Suddenly, with a crack that echoed like thunder, the mirror shattered, sending shards spiraling through the air. In that moment of chaos, Sarah felt herself pulled toward the visage, the fractured shards reflecting the chaos of her life and the bloodline she shared with those damned souls. With desperation, she yanked Mia and Danny to her chest, but as she looked into her children's eyes, realization gelled like ice in her veins. What if the curse could be broken? What if she had to embrace the darkness instead of fighting it? The room plunged into an eerie silence. The specters, frozen in time, awaited her choice. She glanced back at the broken mirror, shards glinting like knives in the dimness. Perhaps it's time to confront what lay buried deep within. A pulse of anticipation flashed through the shadows, throbbing against her skin, as if they too were anticipating her decision. Would she succumb to the family's bloody legacy, or could she rewrite it all? "Mommy?" Mia's voice cut through the tension, laced with uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced anew. What price would she pay to know the truth? And with every moment that stretched before her, she realized the most terrifying choice still awaited. What if the answers she sought were far worse than the shadows themselves? The shards of the mirror lay scattered like teeth on the floor, gleaming ominously in the pale light. Sarah's heart pounded as the biting chill of the shadows crept closer. The air thickened, swirling with whispers that crawled under her skin. It felt suffocating, almost alive. "Mommy!" Danny shrieked, squeezing his eyes shut in terror. "I want to go home." "Just hold on, Danny," she urged, clutching Mia tighter, fear pulsating through her veins. The figures hovered at the edges of her vision, their grotesque faces shifting, folding into one another like the folds of a dark, tattered cloak, fragments of the mirror reflected her children, their faces twisted in desperation, but the reflection seemed to twist with sinister joy at witnessing the horror. Shadows wrapped around her, and a foreboding weight sank deeper into her chest. "Mommy, what are we going to do?" Mia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The air crackled with tension as the figures swayed with a sickening rhythm, their whispered promises weaving into the fabric of her mind. She closed her eyes, willing them away, but they remained, hungrily pulsating, waiting for her to falter. "Mia, Danny, listen to me. We have to find the basement," Sarah said, hoping to keep them focused. "It'll be safer there." With a surge of courage, she turned and rushed toward the doorway, her feet pounding against the wooden floor. The shadows swirled behind her like a cyclone. Every beat of her heart echoed in her ears like a ticking time bomb. "Mommy, they're coming." Danny's voice trembled, and she felt him cling to her leg, stumbling as fear gnawed at him. "No!" she shouted back, pushing forward. "We are not going to let them win. Not today." They dashed through the hall, and shadows lunged forward, grasping with long, skeletal fingers. Sarah could feel the icy breath of the spirits on her neck, and she shivered but dared not look back. The basement door swung open. An unexpected gust of stale air met Sarah's face, wrapping around her like the arms of the departed. The staircase descended into darkness, and the clang of metal echoed faintly from below. She hesitated. It felt like stepping into the mouth of a beast. "Mommy." Mia pulled at her arm, eyes wide. "I don't want to go in there." "Trust me, baby," she whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her resolve. "We have to." They slipped into the darkness, descending slowly. The shadows hissed and clawed at their backs, as though seeking to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. The moment they reached the bottom step, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing them in an icy gloom. "Mommy." Danny whimpered, his small voice punctuating the quiet. The basement was a graveyard of forgotten memories. Old newspapers yellowed with time lay scattered on the concrete floor, barely legible words peeking through like obscured truths. An ancient furnace loomed in the far corner, its rusted vents like skeletal arms reaching out to snatch them away. "No!" Sarah shouted. "I won't let it take us." She felt the shadows snake around her ankle, dragging her back toward the door. Adrenaline coursed through her, sending sharp bursts of cold fear flashing through her limbs. "We need to find something that can help us break the curse," she cried, searching the basement frantically, her hands brushed against something cold and metallic. A box, old and unmarked, sat tucked under the stairs. She yanked it out and the shadows flared, retreating just a moment as light flickered around the edges. "Mommy, what's inside?" Mia asked, eyes full of uncertainty. "I don't know, but we have to look," Sarah replied, her fingers trembling as she lifted the lid. Suddenly, a chorus of screams erupted from the box, a cacophony of pain and fury encompassing them. The darkness surged forth, more violent than before, angry that she dared to pry into its secrets. "Get back!" she shouted, shielding her children, but the shadows clawed at her, eager to drag her down into the void. "Mommy!" Danny screamed. "Make it stop!" In her hand, she clutched a frayed piece of parchment that seemed to pulse with life. Vague symbols danced across the page, twisting and writhing as though alive. The wails crescendoed, a seamless wave crashing over them. The shadows began to solidify, more distinct, and desperation seized Sarah. What if the secrets buried in her family's past held the key to their survival? How much blood had been spilled for her to see this moment? "Read it!" The shadows roared, their breath hot against her skin. She hesitated, heart racing, realizing an unsettling truth. Did she dare unlock the horror that could save them or destroy them all? As the whispers filled her mind, the darkness surged forward, ready to consume them whole. "Danny! Mia!" she yelled, voice rising as uncertainty choked her. "Whatever happens, hold on to me tight. And in that terrible moment, she dared to begin reading. The soft crackle of paper filled the air as Sarah unfolded the parchment, its touch seeming both alive and wicked. The symbols twitched under her gaze, and the screams intensified, reverberating through the damp walls of the basement. "Mommy, please." Danny's grip tightened around her waist, his little body shaking against her. Mia, pale and wide-eyed, stepped closer, instinctively seeking the warmth of her mother's embrace. In that moment, Sarah's focus shattered. Was this truly their only option? "Listen!" She shouted at the shadows, her voice shaky, "I want to let you take us." The figures pulsed closer, the darkness wrapped around them like a vice, eager to steal away their breath. Her heart raced, knowing the old wives' tales about curses. Bloodlines tainted by hate, vengeful spirits lingering too long. But as the whispers grew louder, the urgency turned electric. Deciding on instinct, she began reading the symbols aloud, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Doomed to wander, bound by blood return what was taken, or forever be lost." With every word spoken, the shadows recoiled. The basement trembled, an echo of long-forgotten whispers clamoring for attention. It was working, but at what cost? A gale of icy air whipped through the room, snatching at her hair, and the box rattled violently beside her. She felt the floor shift beneath their feet, an unnerving vibration rising from the depths of the earth. The ground moaned, releasing a foul odor, like something long buried had awakened. "Mommy!" Mia screamed, the sounds of the wailing shadows mixing with the groaning of wood and stone. "Hold on!" Sarah urged, tightening her grip around the parchment. "Please, stop!" Danny cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Just a little longer." She fought to keep her voice steady. "We have to finish." The shadows twisted and contorted, furious at being summoned back to realize their past mistakes. They reached out with dark tendrils, lashing at Sarah's arms and legs, tugging her down into a pit of despair. "If you stop reading, we'll let you go." A voice hissed, a raspy whisper mixed with the sound of glass breaking. "Just let go, and the children will be safe." The faces of monstrous figures flared in front of her, a writhing mass of misery and hunger. It would be so easy to just say the words, to let the darkness envelop them, but something deeper clawed at her heart, of fierce protectiveness. "No!" she shouted defiantly. "I refuse to let you win." There was a pause, a heartbeat of silence, a moment her heart desperately clung to. Then she spoke again, louder and clearer, the words pouring from her mouth, resonating off the wet concrete walls. "What was lost shall be restored." The shadows screamed, the intensity knocking the wind from her lungs, pushing air from the room like a tidal wave. Flickers of light sparked from the pages, illuminating ghostly faces frozen in agonizing expressions. "Return! Return! Return!" they shrieked, rising and falling like the swell of a tempest. Danny and Mia trembled closer, Sarah's heartbeat in sync with theirs. She pressed on. "Bound by blood, the past shall be undone. Set all of you free." At that moment, the illumination brightened, a blinding flash erupting from the parchment. She shielded her eyes, but not before catching a glimpse of the shadows bending backward, recoiling like insects from light, and as the chaos reached its zenith, the box erupted, unleashing a blinding beam that split the darkness apart. Sarah's breath caught as she felt an unseen force pulling her family. In that moment of precious seconds, reality shifted around her, and she had to make the choice. To hold on tight to her children, or to let go and fight the shadows. The decision locked in her mind as the shadows howled louder. Would her children be safe if she surrendered to the darkness? In that instant, all she could do was scream. The darkness collapsed, pulling everything into an abyss. As silence enveloped them, a heartbeat later, everything shifted again. Where were they? The whispers faded, but the chill remained. "Mommy?" Danny's voice broke. The stillness, a tiny light echoing in the void. "Where are we?" Mia added, her confusion palpable. And then they heard it, a low, haunting melody drifting through the air. What is that?" Sarah gasped, her heart drumming in her chest. A glimmer of light appeared in the distance, beckoning them forward, yet she felt the forbidden pull of the past lurking behind them. What lay ahead might just hold the secrets they may never want to uncover. Could confronting the unknown lead to salvation, or would it drag them deeper into the nightmare? The light grew brighter as Sarah hesitated, her instincts tearing at her. Danny and Mia clung to her, their soft whimpers melding with the eerie melody, creating a surreal chorus that felt impossibly wrong. Every step toward the glow made her skin prickle with dread. She knew, deep down, this could lead to something irreversible. As they moved forward, she felt a pull strange yet familiar, an invitation that lingered on the edge of her consciousness. The music wove through the air like a silken thread, wrapping around her, urging her closer. With every heartbeat, the basement they had fought to escape faded, replaced by an ethereal expanse that shimmered like a hidden world. "Mommy, can we go home?" Danny's tiny voice trembled, piercing the ominous cloud that hung overhead. She turned to face her children, their faces pale, eyes wide with fear. I don't know, honey. But we have to find out what this is." They crept onward, the ground shifting unnaturally beneath them. The light ahead flared, revealing shapes, figures trapped in a swirling mist. They seemed to reach out with desperate hands, faces twisted in anguish. Sarah's heart raced. Were these the spirits she had tried to banish? Mia squeezed her hand tighter, and Sarah felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. "What if they want us to join them?" her daughter whispered, her voice barely audible. "Stay close." Sarah felt a tremor ripple through her as the distant melody swelled, echoing off the remains of what once was their sanctuary. It twisted into a twisted cacophony of cries and laughter, a haunting reminder of the past. Suddenly, from the edge of the light, a figure broke free. It was a woman, her face obscured by shadows, but her eyes burned bright twin flames of rage and sorrow. "You were not meant to return," she screamed, her voice reverberating like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "They will take you forever." Shadows poured from the woman, rushing at them like a tidal wave, a dark river seeking to reclaim its lost prey. "Run!" Sarah shouted, pulling her children back. But the shadows were faster, snatching at their ankles, weaving tighter around them. Danny screamed as the darkness clawed at him, trying to drag him into the depths. "Mommy! Help!" Sarah's heart sank as she felt the icy fingers gripping her children, desperation clawing at her throat. "No! I won't let them take you." She remembered the parchment in her hand, still clenched. With a fierce determination, she raised it high, hoping the symbols would serve as a shield. "Stay away. We have the right to be free." The parchment flickered in the cold gloom as Sarah recited the words yet again, not truly knowing if it would work. "Bound by blood, set free by light." The shadows screeched, the sound echoing like the death knell of 1,000 tormented souls. The woman lunged toward Sarah, a wretched snarl twisting her lips. "You cannot escape your fate." A sudden blinding light erupted from the parchment, forcing back the shadows just long enough for Sarah to pull her children closer. The darkness writhed, unable to close in on them. For a brief moment, they stood together in a halo of flickering luminescence, the power of her voice pushing the shadows away, but the light began to dim, the malignant figures regrouping, their grip on the children tightening. As Sarah's breath quickened, the realization hit her she couldn't hold this power forever. "Mommy, I'm scared," Mia cried, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Don't look back, just hold on to me," Sarah shouted. With fierce energy, she began to run, dragging her children through the tide of fading light. Behind them, the laughter echoed, taunting and cruel, slithering into her mind like a serpent. The melody morphed into a sonorous wail, mocking their attempt at escape. As they neared the edge of the glow, a chilling voice rang out, flooding her thoughts with despair, "You cannot outrun your blood. It calls to you." Sarah's heart thundered. Would it truly lead them somewhere worse? A shadow darted past her, wrapping cold fingers around her wrist. Panic surged, but Sarah fought back, wrenching free. Ahead, the sweet, relentless pull of light beckoned them, but just as they were about to reach it, an enormous shadow coalesced, blocking the way. A monstrous, gnarled figure cloaked in darkness. Its hollow eyes shimmered with malice. "Stay or suffer," it growled, its words dripping with venom. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but the weight of her bloodline's legacy pressed her down, anchoring her to the spot. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of something far worse? "Make your choice," the figure hissed, as darkness swirled menacingly around them. Would she confront the legacy of her family, or would she abandon them to their fate? Sarah's breath came in sharp bursts, the cold air invading her lungs as she gripped her children tight. The monstrous figure loomed, an embodiment of the terror that had haunted her family for generations. It seemed to pulse, dark tendrils curling off its body like smoke, eager to devour what was left of their hope. "Sarah, what do we do?" Mia's voice was barely a whisper, trembling against the noise of the shadows swirling around them. "Trust me," Sarah forced out, her determination breaking through a shroud of fear. She could feel the weight of her bloodline, the history coursing through her veins. This dark legacy was waiting, taunting, and she couldn't let it consume her children too. "Stay right behind me," she shouted, her eyes darting from the figure to the flickering glow that felt both distant and tantalizingly close. She held the parchment aloft, its words etched deeply in her mind, repeating the incantation as if it were a lifeline. "Bound by blood, set free by light." With every syllable, she felt a surge, a push back against the smothering gloom. For a fleeting second, the shadows recoiled, revealing a path, a narrow opening back toward the light. "Run!" She didn't wait to see if they would follow. With sheer instinct, she dashed forward, her feet pounding against the unseen ground. Her heart raced as she felt the shrieks of the shadows clawing at her back. The cacophony morphed into a raucous laughter, a cruel symphony that echoed in her mind, reminding her they would never let her leave without a fight. Mia stumbled, her tiny legs struggling to keep pace. "Mommy! I can't." In an instant, Sarah scooped her daughter up, holding her against her chest. Danny was right behind them, his panic palpable. No more glancing back, they couldn't slow down now. The malignant figure snarled, its shadowy hands reaching for them, and its voice was a chilling growl. "You cannot escape this fate. Your legacy will claim you." The oppressive darkness scrabbled at her, each whisper tugging at her heart, trying to reignite her doubts. But the parchment in her hand, she wouldn't let it go. It pulsed with a strange energy, a reminder of her ancestors and the power they had wielded. With renewed grit, Sarah focused on the words, the desperate chant growing louder until it roared out of her lips. "Bound by blood, set free by light." They surged forward, and for a moment, the shadows fell back. The light enveloped them, shimmering against the edges of the darkness. It felt like they were being pulled into something, a bright embrace that spoke of safety and sorrow in the same breath, but the shadows would not stay back long. They writhed angrily, embracing their wrath with a chorus of cries that chilled Sarah's blood. She could feel the ground shift beneath her once more, and with a loud roar, the figure surged through the fray as if it were a silhouette trying to tear the fabric of the world apart. "This isn't just a choice, it's a battle," she gasped. "We have to fight them together." "Mommy!" Danny's voice rang with terror as the shadows closed in again, the twisted faces morphing into those of desperate souls seeking revenge, their mouths moving in spectral wails that chilled Sarah's bones. Time felt suspended as Sarah veered, dragging her children closer. The parchment glimmered once again, small, unwavering hope igniting, urging her forward, while behind her the monstrous figure pulled itself closer, its eyes burning with hunger. "Make your choice," it hissed, the threat hanging thick in the air. With horror rising within her, Sarah followed the tapestry of light. But as they mounted the final crest, the light flickered and dimmed, a desperate grasp at illumination failing against the night. "Stay and join us," the creature growled, its monstrous hand stretching toward them, and in that heartbeat, as they hesitated, shadows slithered around Danny, slipping through his fingers like silk. Just as her heart sang of hope, something darker loomed, a dreadful realization dawning on Sarah. Was escape truly possible? Or had they been drawn into the cycle of darkness, a path she could never escape? Darkness curled, whispering promises of power, spinning a web tight around her thoughts. Mommy Danny's eyes were wide, filled with desperate sadness as shadows began to envelop him. No. And with the last thread of light wavering, the ground beneath them cracked wide open, revealing a yawning chasm of blackness. Would she leap into the void to rescue them, or surrender to the cursed legacy weaving through their veins? The chasm beckoned, a monstrous maw hungry for screams. Sarah hesitated only for a heartbeat too long. The shadows clawed through the air, wrapping around Danny's wrist, pulling him toward the abyss. His terrified cries tore at her heart, drowning her thoughts in a tide of desperation. "Mommy! Help me!" He kicked and twisted, eyes wide with fear, but the darkness was insatiable. "Danny!" She lunged forward, adrenaline surging through her limbs. It was now or never. With one hand holding Mia tight against her, she stretched the other toward her son. "Hold on." His small fingers grazed hers, just a whisper away. For a moment, it felt like victory. But then the dark figure twisted and the shadows thickened, slapping against her face like icy water, chilling her to the bone. "Let him go!" Sarah screamed, her voice echoing against the walls of the void. The creature slowed its grip, eyes narrowing, delighted by the drama unfolding before it. "Join us or lose him forever," it wheezed, its words a rasping wind that nipped at Sarah's sanity. The sins of the past danced just out of reach, tempting her with their seductive power. "No. I refuse." She shouted, channeling every ounce of her bloodline's defiance. In that instant, the incantation ignited within her. Bound by blood, set free by light. The words thundered from her, shaking the ground beneath them. A blinding light erupted from the parchment, spilling forth a searing glow. Shadows recoiled, screeching as the brilliance consumed the air around them. The gaping void hesitated, the edges of the chasm shimmering with uncertainty. "Mommy, please!" Danny wailed, his hand slipping further from her grasp. Sarah felt every pulse of her heartbeat thunder in her ears. She had always thought of her bloodline's legacy as a curse, a weight impossible to bear. But now, it was the only weapon she had. The light exploded forth, rupturing the fabric of the darkness, illuminating their surroundings with vibrant energy. "Come to me!" She shouted, reaching deeper within herself, drawing on her ancestors' strength. The shadows thrashed, their howls merging into a cacophonous roar. The figure howled, furious and desperate, its form flickering as if it could be extinguished. "You can't defeat what flows in your veins," it bellowed, thrashing against the light. "Watch me!" Sarah cried out, and the wavelengths of brightness surged, tearing at the shroud of despair that engulfed them. Mia, tucked close to her chest, clutched at her mother's arm, sensing the burgeoning power. "Mommy, it's working!" She squeaked, eyes brightening with a shared hope, but hope was a double-edged sword. Just as the shadows shrieked and recoiled, Sarah felt a chilling hand slide between her fingers, ripping Danny away from her grasp. Her heart shattered as he was ripped downward, vanishing into the inky abyss. "Danny!" The scream tore from her lungs, raw and primal. She dropped to her knees, reaching into the void intuitively, desperately, for a heartbeat. Silence folded in on itself. Time felt broken. Barren. The air thickened with expectancy, holding its breath. "Join us forever," a slithery voice crooned from the depths, intertwining with Danny's sobs drifting up through the dark. The temptation echoed like a haunting lullaby. No. Her resolve shuddered. Could she really let him go? Could she turn back and live with her curse alone? Suddenly, the light flickered, pulsing as if it sensed her hesitation, echoing the weight of her choice. The creature lunged forward, reaching, hoping to pull her into its sinuous darkness. Its hollow laughter filled the air again, and Sarah felt her strength waning, and then she remembered her ancestors, their sacrifices. Their battles. It wasn't just her life at stake anymore. It was her son's too. With a fierce scream, she reached deeper inside, anchoring herself in the power that surged through her bloodline. I will not join you. As the shadows writhed, the light blazed brighter, igniting her spirit in a wildfire of defiance. Sarah breathed deeply, seeing her son's terrified face in her mind. Danny. She called again, knowing she had one last chance. I'm coming for you. In that split second, the tendrils of darkness unraveled, revealing a fleeting glimpse of Danny. The light glinted off his scared face, a beacon against the pitch black. Would her final stand be enough to pull him back? Or would they both be lost to the darkness forever? The answer loomed, darker and more unclear than ever. The darkness trembled under the weight of Sarah's resolve. She felt the light pooling around her, pulling her heart toward her son, pulling her soul toward the fight. Ignition surged through her veins as she bore witness to fear gripping her son. Mommy. Danny's voice, a fragile thread in a storm, cut through the void. The horror of his desperate plea tightened around her chest. She couldn't let this nightmare swallow him whole. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. She screamed, her heart racing furiously. Every fiber of her being screamed to leap into that chasm, that abyss that threatened to consume everything she loved. She closed her eyes, letting the power of her ancestors surge through her. What had they fought for if not this moment? The burden of their sacrifice pressed heavily on her shoulders, and she steeled herself. Together, we are strong. She shouted, her voice echoing in the cavernous depths. With a roar, she thrust her hand into the murky darkness, the light cascading from her fingertips, cutting through the thick of despair that swirled around her. Time felt like it had stilled as she felt the pulsing warmth beneath her palm. It was Danny's little hand, weak and trembling, reaching for the glow like a moth to a flame. Yet with every inch she gained, the shadows pulsed back viciously, clawing at her flesh, whispering dreadful secrets into her ears. Join us, Sarah. We know your fears your past. The creature's voice rolled over her like smoke, squeezing her throat. The words dug deeper, teetering on the edge of her sanity. You can't protect him. Embrace the darkness instead. Get away from us. She screamed, the sound barely breaking through the haze of despair. Every word fought against the very pulse of the shadows. Through the storm, she caught a glimpse of Danny, his face awash in tears, caught in the wreckage of darkness. Her heart shattered anew, a wave of fury igniting from every fragile piece. Danny. Keep reaching. Her voice sliced through the chaos, a lure born from the depths of her love, but the shadows seemed alive, wrapping tighter around her, squeezing her will like a vice. She felt her strength waver, sweat trickled down her back, her limbs felt heavy, as though she were battling a beast made of dark energy. The light faltered, flickered, dimmed. Mommy. His cry was drowning in shadows, echoing like the very end of hope itself. In an instant, Sarah felt the temperature drop. An icy dread snaked over her like death creeping nearer. She had to choose, fight or give in. To save him, she must face darkness that had haunted her family for generations. Together, we are stronger than this. She urged herself and drew on the ancient words she had only ever whispered, an incantation that swirled in her blood. Bound by blood unstoppable. As the shadows shrieked, exploding in chaos, she felt the surge. Energy gathered, blood pulsing in rhythm, fueled by desperation and love. Danny's hand met hers, solid and warm. A jolt sparked through her, bright as hope. Danny. Pull. The creature's laughter thundered, a nightmarish symphony that shook her resolve. Your son offers nothing. He belongs to the void now. With desperation clawing at her heart, Sarah pulled hard. Light and darkness fought brutally in that chasm, a clash that sent vibrations racing through the air. Would her bloodline's magic hold against the demon's might? In that moment, doubt flickered, but as wide as the chasm, fear loomed even larger. Suddenly, Danny's cries took on a new tone, a cry of rage, a cry of life fighting back. I'm here, Mommy. I want to let go. Could her familial strength be enough to rescue him? Or would this be their final moment, swallowed by the darkness forever? The war was far from over, and she felt the answer racing towards them, dark and undeniable. Sarah's heart raced in her chest as she felt the pull of Danny's hand against hers. The shadows writhed, retaliating with harsh whispers that seeped into her mind like poison. "You cannot win." The creature bellowed, thrashing against the light that flickered in the abyss. But Sarah held tight, determination crystallizing every ounce of fear into raw power. "Danny, pull. We can fight this together." She could feel the strength of their bond, the love that wrapped around them tighter than the encroaching darkness. His small hand squeezed hers, and she could see the fire roaring in his eyes, mirroring her own. "I want to let go, Mommy. I promise. Keep reaching. We're almost there." The shadows gathered, claws grasping for their ankles, drawing them closer to the depths. But within Sarah, a flame ignited. The very essence of her forebears surged through her, reminding her of their struggles, their failures, and their triumphs. "Bound by blood," she shouted, the words echoing against the walls of despair. "Set free by light." The incantation rose from her like a battle cry, throwing back the tides of darkness for just a moment. The blinding light shot forth with renewed vigor. For every flicker of doubt, she fortified her stance. She could not only summon the strength for herself, she had to empower her children. With a renewed sense of purpose, she drew Danny closer, forcing her focus onto the shimmering warmth of hope. "Stay with me. I can feel you." She shouted into the chaos, her voice vibrant with authority. Each word built a shield against the shadows that lashed out at them, hungry to pull them back into the void. "Mommy. Let us get out of here." His voice rang sharply against the oppressive sound of despair, igniting a spark within her as she pulled him toward the light. "Run!" she urged, dragging her children forward, arms extended as if to grasp the very essence of freedom. Each step felt like solidifying their will against the tether of their cursed legacy. The light illuminated their path, revealing the glint of hope dancing just beyond the dark. But suddenly, the shadows surged again, a furious whirlpool of anguish and rage, the monstrous figure reformed, glowering with malevolence. "Your blood is bound to this fate." It howled, stretching forth its crooked fingers, almost touching them. The chill of darkness clawed at her spine, threatening to cascade over her like an avalanche. "No!" she shouted defiantly, anchoring her children tightly against her side. "We are not bound by fear, nor by blood. We are bound by love." The words thundered from her, and once more the light blazed around them, illuminating every twisted face of sorrow that closed around them. An intense battle raged within her, a consolidation of horrifying voices urging her to succumb to despair, to give in to the darkness that had plagued her family for ages. She felt it wearing her down, but amidst the chaos, Mia's tiny voice broke through. "Mommy. You're the strongest. I believe in you." Sarah's heart clenched. That innocence, that trust, was the tether she needed. The figures writhed and recoiled as the beacon of hope surged forward. "We will not be claimed," she cried out, tangling hope and love around them like majesty, blending history with a new destiny. With each recited phrase, the energy intensified, the shadows shrieked in agony, but still they pressed on, closing in. The monstrous figure glared, its eyes narrowed, reveling in the torment it sought to inflict. "You cannot break the curse. This isn't just a curse. It's my undoing. It ends here," she bellowed back. The instant felt colossal, the air thick with anticipation as Sarah summoned every ounce of power she possessed. The memories of every soul lost to the dark flooded her senses, but she wrapped herself in another's recollection, her own mother, guiding her through storms, teaching her how to stand tall against the relentless tide. "Bound by blood," she thundered once more, emboldened as the light burst forth like a supernova, illuminating the darkened chasm entirely. "Set free by an oath." The creature roared, unleashing a fierce wave of desperation, but it was too late. With one final declaration fueled by love and loss, Sarah commanded with a force that shook the very roots of their existence, light. In that moment, as her voice broke against the fabric of dark, the shadows recoiled, shrieking with unholy rage. The light expanded, consuming the abyss, pulling Dani from the depths of despair. Time slowed, every heartbeat echoed fiercely in the vastness around her, then they surged forward, breaking through, bursting into the brilliance of blinding light. With a gasp, they landed on the other side, safely collapsed on the grass outside their home, rain cascading down around them softly. The air filled her lungs as she turned to face her children, relief flooding through her. Dani. Mia. She breathed, enveloping them in her embrace, the darkness retreating like a bad dream. The storm had calmed. "Mommy, I was scared," Dani whimpered, his small body trembling against her. "I know, baby. But it's over," she whispered with the fullness of love overcoming the remnants of terror. "How did you do it?" Mia asked, peering up with wide eyes, a mixture of awe and relief painting her features. "I realized that love is stronger than fear, and that together, we could overcome anything," Sarah said, heart swelling with pride and irrevocable joy. As the storm clouds rolled away, allowing the moonlight to peek through, Sarah knew they had broken free from the chains that had bound them. The threat of the curse and darkness melted away like the mist in the dawn. They were free. She glanced back at the shadows lingering at the fringes, then she turned, holding her children close. "No more ghosts of the past. This is our future, a future filled with love." And as they stepped onto the porch, with the rain washing the remnants of their fears away, Sarah breathed a sigh of pure relief. The shadows could linger, but their hold on her family had been severed, perhaps forever. "Now," she smiled, pulling them close, "let us go back inside and make some memories." This was their new beginning, together, united against the darkness. Don't forget, if you've loved this journey and want to hear more, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button, because it helps us bring you stories that will haunt and inspire. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is everything. Let us keep the stories alive.